Just tuned in, is this all human players? Yes, we have 4 factions with 5 players in each. Gandhi takes control of Baratia. Right, Baratia would be Third International. I was just thinking, why isn't Baratia on Co-Pro's side and not Princely Federation? No, Princely Federation is the neutral one. So that does make sense that Princely Fed would be Co-Pro. So, Romania, Serbia, Greece, all piling in to Bulgaria, but Bulgaria just not giving ground. Meanwhile, the Chilean-Argentinian war is over. And then another war begins. Peru, Bolivia declares war on Ecuador, somebody declared war on Argentina, and even though Argentina just got out of one conflict, they're immediately into the next, and Brazil is probably just watching this, rubbing their hands together saying, yes, weaken yourselves. Meanwhile, we can see that the American troops are deployed almost in their entirety to the AOS's front, the CSA just given free rein to push out, and actually Denver is starting to come into range, although Denver does have its own garrison force. So even if they did manage to push all the way across the Great Plains into Denver, Denver is being held. So I was correct. The USA is pushing for an attack on the AOS at the moment, probably to try and capitulate them. Although there are a large concentration of troops right here, which may well try to cut straight across into Chicago. So this might be a very similar strategy to what we saw against Qing, where they just let the AI overextend and then they just cut them as soon as they are sufficiently overextended. And it does kind of look like they're doing that. Meanwhile, Mongolia looks to be making some progress against Ma. Tibet mostly just holding their line. Siam slowly advancing. This fight over here has just descended into a complete stalemate. Although we are seeing Strong Tang's attack is starting to see with some success. We do see a green line there. Red attack there. Green defensive line in Nha Trang. So, do you still have anyone supporting you? Lend-Lease from the Germans. And all 3,000 guns have already been sent. Meanwhile, the Indochina still has volunteers from Britain, France, Ireland, and Italy. Now, why does Britain have such a weird flag? Is that because you're totalist? You know, I admit, I have not played Union of Britain for a while. Have they been changed? So I don't recognise the flag. That's definitely different. Yes, Britain has been changed. Definitely has. Feels like a smaller focus. Oh, right. I'm not looking at Britain. It's like, why can't I see your Congress of Trade Unions? And they haven't actually started yet. So none of that's been done. They've done most of the industry. And they're now working on centralized planning, which is going to be their army upgrades. Nothing with the Navy yet. Meanwhile, Fentiang starting to push really deeply into Qing. Left Kuomintang looks like they're in just trouble right now. Left Kuomintang still being supported by France. Getting 100 guns a month from the French. Oh gosh, of course, Mongolia and Tibet are on the Japanese side. So these guys are actually just fighting on this giant front. Plus, of course, the Japanese naval invasion to Nanjing. A couple of the Japanese have been cut off outside of Anqing, but they're Marines, and Marines can usually hold out. Okay, it kind of looks like the Japanese have somewhat forgotten about the troops in Nanjing, because they could be moving people to go and open this up. This guy could move to there. It means that you have a double line to make sure that they stay in supply. Then you can move down here to the south to ensure that you don't lose the Marine unit. Vietnam War is LARPing the Vietnam War. Portugal declared war on the Iberian Federation. Interesting. So this is CNTFAI having completely just bypassed the Civil War. Election success, consolidating Spain. But they are now apparently at war with Portugal, and there is nobody in Spain. Good move by Portugal, apparently. The focus tree isn't smaller, it's just better laid out. Okay. Kaiserreich's been streamlining the focus trees, making them smaller, but each focus more impactful. I quite like that they were big, but they needed to be shorter. I like the choice. The British tree did get some polish recently. Interesting, I might need to play as Britain again. Because I did really enjoy the Union of Britain. Especially trying to buy your oil from the Americans, then trying to ensure the combined syndicates of America win to secure your oil imports, because oil was a big problem. Do they still have that absolutely disgusting synthetic oil buff? That was one of my least favourite things. No, they removed that. Good. I wonder how they fixed it. Because I sent a really long proposal to the Kaiserreich team about Britain's oil situation. Because Britain has a lot of natural oil, but Kaiserreich just didn't represent that. And there are numerous reasons why Britain's oil was not exploited to its best extent until like the 1970s. And with the changes that occurred in Britain after the First World War, all of those situations are basically not in place. Basically, the entirety of Britain's oil was privatized, and the private entities just didn't try to extract it. Whereas if it was nationalized and if there was enough desperation, those oil fields could have been exploited way earlier. Plus North Sea oil. I mean, part of that was technology, but a large portion of the reason that North Sea oil technology wasn't progressed was because American oil was so easy to get. If the Co-Pro was cut off from American oil, of course they would go and try to find their own oil sources, which would mean that the 1970s technology probably would have been done much earlier. 1960s, 70s. Basically deep sea drilling. Hey, Miss Donny. Which of the King Arthur's knights made the round table circumference? Very good. Kaiserreich developers had a stream today. The update is probably soon. Comes out during the tournament. I mean, the KR devs are pretty... I'm not going to say very heavily involved with the tournament. They certainly know about it. I doubt that they would release an update during the tournament. Oh, now they've arrived. Where the hell were they? And how did they get here so quickly? Were they on the French front? Were they on the German front? Was I just looking at a different country that just couldn't see them? I mean, it's possible. But no, considering how much Portugal was pushing out, I don't think that is likely. But man, Portugal is just completely outgunned by the Spaniards here. Like, not even by a little bit. UAB now has oil. Yeah, of course, that's the thing I could have just checked, was the resource map mode. Yeah, oil in the Midlands. Hey, that's one of the proposals I made. And also in Lothian. Yeah. Now, the other proposal I made for that was to have focuses to basically exploit that, but they might do that through decisions? Plus also the fact that you can use infrastructure to actually develop oil supplies, and they have already done that. Britain is playing here exactly how I play Britain in vanilla. Infrastructure everywhere. Tiny amount of oil, not enough for the UOB's AI to want to use the naval effectively. That's unfortunate, because I thought the proposals I sent were pretty good. A small focus tree about oil exploitation, which you can choose or not, depending on what you want to do, and then some decisions which are unlocked by the focuses. Basically, Midlands oil, the revocation of the Defence of the Realm Act, which is what privatised all of the oil. Like, there's no way that the syndicalist government would care about private oil interests and just nationalise the damn thing. The oil they have gets engulfed by the Air Force. Yeah, in single player I guess that's true. In multiplayer, I'm guessing the UOB is not the air controller. But then again, maybe it is. Curious about that. Who's going to be the air controller? Have they set that up yet? Yeah, it is. Britain. France still has a couple. I guess Spain could do it, although where would Spain get their oil from? No, it does look like UOB is going to be the air controller. What country are we? All of them. Oh, definitely no update during the tournament. One of the devs even left the stream to play in the tournament. Yeah, I mean, we had Flamefang in chat earlier, and I know he's one of the senior developers. So they are 100% aware of this, and like I said, Kaiserreich Cinema is one of the main sponsors of the Kaiserreich Weekly tournament, being basically the financial arm of Kaiserreich. Like, Kaiserreich is such an interesting mod, because one of the problems that a lot of mods have, so my own background is modding. I started out as a modder for Prophecy of Pendor for Mount and Blade, and then we basically formed a commercial studio for a game called Darium, which is still in development. We even did a Kickstarter and all of that, but one of the main reasons we wanted to do a commercial game was that it wasn't really possible at that time to monetize modding. And modding is such a massive undertaking in terms of man hours and things like that. You can't feasibly do it and hold down a full-time job at the same time. But nowadays with Patreon, which basically allows mods to be funded, with Kaiserreich Cinema bringing in basically the artwork and then selling the artwork in the form of posters and flags and things like that, and starting to produce their own TV series and things, like, that's such an interesting project to watch. Like, if I was still at university and needed a thesis topic, monetizing of mods would be a really good topic now, because you get mods which are getting increasingly smart in how they finance themselves. Nexus, another good example. Nexus now allows you to make donations to mods that you download. More and more companies are starting to push out paid modding as a platform. I know that Bethesda's foray into that was a bit of a bad one, but I think that was the implementation. I think that Bethesda implemented it really poorly. It should be pay what you want, not set price. Or at least have the ability for the modders to set pay what you want. I think that would do a lot better, and kind of a similar system to Humble Bundle. You basically want to treat paid modding like Humble does. Was deep sea drilling possible on 1930s or 40s tech, though? Seems like the 50s and 60s manufacturing techniques might have been necessary. I would argue that yes, because like I was saying earlier, deep sea drilling technology was delayed massively because all of the oil investment went into American drilling because it was easier. But if American oil drilling isn't a thing, then one of two things would have happened. One, it would have gone deep sea, Norwegian and British drilling, especially seeing as Britain's one of the major players in the co-prosperity sphere. Or two, you would have had an earlier development of Saudi oil. Although that was more of an exploration issue, like they knew that the oil was in the North Sea and was in the East Midlands. So that could have been developed. And the other one is the Netherlands. There's actually a really, really big oil field up in Friesland. Which turned out to be gas, mostly. It's like one of the biggest natural gas fields in Europe. But there was oil there as well. That's another thing that could have been developed. Especially if the Netherlands, after World War I and was neutral, and basically left to their own devices, and I would imagine is more likely to be neutral in Kaiserreich timeline in World War II. That could also have been developed, especially if they found they could sell to the co-pro nations. Because they're the Dutch. They don't really care who they're selling it to as long as they can sell stuff. Not only syndicalists, they're syndicalists at war. Privatization would have a snowball's chance in hell of being in effect. Exactly. Absolutely. Netherlands and Insulindia have made peace. Insulindia went over to them, so the Dutch still have Papua New Guinea. And this is actually what Indonesia looked like when they first gained independence. Papua New Guinea remained Dutch until later, like I think it was 10 years later on, when the Dutch gave that over to the Indonesians. But immediately after the Indonesian War of Independence, that's what they had. Meanwhile, the United States of America have definitely stalled a little bit in their attacks against the AUS. It looks like they've had to move more and more of their troops to stop the CSA from just taking everything. And their assaults against the AUS have suffered as a result, just because the front line is so massive. I mean, the CSA... Again, CSA is the industry, though. 71 factories for the USA against the CSA is 83. So the gap is closing a little bit. But the AUS... Oh no, they've lost a little bit of their gains in Texas. But this has definitely slowed down a tad. Portugal didn't stand a chance. Hungary has already fallen. Bulgaria has taken Thrace and is currently holding off the attacks across into Constantinople. That's mostly just the Austrians holding out and the Swedes holding out, so it's the volunteers coming in. A couple of Ottoman troops here outside of Athens, which they could quite easily clear up. Otherwise, they're starting to get some front lines decided against the Serbians and the Romanians, but as yet, no movement. Siam has taken out Burma, so that war has ended. The GEA's attack into Indochina continue, with an attack over here that seems to be going quite well. They've gained a lot of manpower. If they change the manpower law, they're on limited conscription. How did you get so much manpower? Don't know. And of course they have a massive reduction in recruitment factor. Colonial instability is not going to be helping that with the stability debuff. Then unorthodox approach, here we go. Recruitable population factor, but that also gives you the recruitable population +5. Which is why they have so much more. Yeah, colonial question with fledgling Marine Corps or an orthodox approach. And they're going local NTOs, which is that huge attack and defense buff. This is going to make a really big difference for them. That's not on core territory, that's just in general. So as soon as German East Asia has that, I think that these assaults are going to become a lot more dangerous. Meanwhile, you guys are going with harassment focus, so political officers reform plan. Yeah, these are no combat buffs, they're just tech. Did Bulgaria take Constantinople? Yeah, I mean, Bulgaria taking Constantinople is not actually that difficult. Because the Ottomans have to ship all of their troops across the strait, and you can just attack straight into them, plus this is all just flat land. It's really easy to attack into. And then once you get to the straits, you just hold against the superior numbers of Ottomans. Kaiserreich is technically disconnected from Kaiserreich and its own thing now, mostly Vincent's personal project. And most of these funds go to Kaiserreich, sometimes to buy high for expansions for the devs, so the rest stays with Kaiserreich. I thought that they did get a portion of it, though. Like, I don't pretend to know the exact agreement between them. And I was always a little bit sorry that Kaiserreich developers weren't more involved in Kaiserreich. As he says, no movement, looks away, they start fighting. I mean, they're still fighting across the rivers, but yeah, they are starting to push. Question, are you using planning prep? I mean, it's gone already, but yes, there was some. I don't get not using battle plans. These attacks would be so much more potent if they were battle planning it. I mean, even if they had this front line reduced to like here and then had these in a separate army with just their own line, you could still control where you wanted the troops to go. I mean, battle planning the entire length of Russia, probably a bad idea. Battle planning like little narrow fronts, it's fine. Especially if you have special units dedicated to attacking, as Bulgaria does. As we saw, because they were the ones that attacked Thrace, and in fact all of them are up here. Yeah, you're just in a garrison order that you have set up on another country, Austria, which allows you to set up front lines without actually using the front lines and still gain... It's a massive exploit that this guy's used. Whoa, that's a lot of planning. Jeez. So you have a level 8 planning general and you're not battle planning. Okay. Meanwhile, in Fentien, the last holdouts have left Komandang in the north. We've had a major Japanese invasion of the south. Left Komandang has been in a slightly better position down here, although there is a pocket in the centre that is currently being extinguished. We've got troops coming in here. We've got troops coming in the south. Oh, those are on Komandang's side. We have troops from Siam coming in as well now, so Siam has joined the war formally. How's the USA front? USA still pretty quiet. CSA is doing a major attack at the moment against the Americans. The Americans not doing a huge amount. Huzzah! They have some troops that they've not allocated yet. That's just militias. I actually quite like the American system. As you liberate states or take control of states, you can then use a decision to raise their militias, which are loyal to you, which basically gives you this constant influx of troops so you don't need to train and raise yourself. And that's how it escalates so much. You get so many troops coming in, which is why it was such a big deal taking out California in particular, because California is a big manpower pool, and that means a lot of militia units. Afro Jackon coming in with a 16-month resubscription. Thank you very much for that ongoing support. Very much appreciate that. Sindrin with bits. I'm sorry I missed it. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. What pastry came close to dominating the European and the Asian landmass? Attila the Bun. You slightly broke me there, Sindrin. Nicely done. Well played, sir. Well played. Vote Slave, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the channel. Good to have you joining us. Oh, I've just realised what they are doing. Yeah, so this is the attack on Chicago. So I was in fact correct in what they were trying to attempt to do. I just hadn't noticed that they were actually making a lot of progress on that side. So they're not defending very much against the northern front, because as soon as Chicago falls, CSA's capital moves to Detroit, and all of the troops in this pocket are cut off.
Yes, sir.
That's not true. They still have the Upper Peninsula. But still, this is a pretty big deal. Supply then has to flow via the Upper Peninsula, and infrastructure up there is not as good. And we got French support, we got Canadian support. More French support. So the French clearly going with heavy artillery. 3 volunteers. France has gone in heavy for America. Princely Federation has declared war on Baratia. Here we go. So Princely Federation is the newest. And there's the cutoff. Gary has fallen. There's actually a city called Gary. Okay, that's funny. Princely Federation is the Co-Pro's newest edition. So they lost Siam. No, not Siam. Argentina. They lost Argentina but gained Princely Federation. No, that was Third International. Crikey, who did they lose to gain Princely Fed? I'm not actually sure. I need to check my notes from previously. I just want to keep an eye on this because I want to see the fall of Chicago, because that is going to be a big deal. The fall of Chicago. Yunnan clique has capitulated. That's another movement in the Chinese War. So I was wrong. I was expecting the Americans to go for the AUS, but they actually went for the CSA, seeing as the CSA were just extending themselves so significantly. And there it is. Federal forces have been pushing towards the combined syndicates of America's temporary capital of Chicago for a while now. Reports are coming in of the city's imminent capture by advancing troops. And they've got a really nice front line against that, actually. That's going to be really difficult for the CSA to break. Were any of the volunteers caught on this side? Yes, French ones were. And now they'll probably push Detroit and then maybe Pennsylvania or Washington. But yeah, that's a significant gain. 79 factories to CSA 67. AOS is still sitting on 40. And yeah, the American attacks are becoming more and more potent. And these are American regular forces, these aren't the militias. I think. Actually, I could be wrong in that. Nope, these are regular divisions. With Bradley in charge. Oh, there's actually naval battles going on. Question. Are those convoys being sunk? Do we... So, we are not playing on the most recent version of Hearts of Iron, and I think that means that we don't have the convoy changes. So all of the convoys being sunk is always going to look like one ship being destroyed. I can't close those. Which is annoying. As an observer, it's going to make it harder to see where naval damage is actually being done. But man, I'm so glad that they got that change in. I may have slightly nudged the developers about that one. Yay, exploiting my position of paradox. Alright, so Mongolia is getting some trapped units. Fentien looks like they've pretty much completely destroyed Left Komandang. And in fact, if we look at the Sino-Japanese War, which I'm not seeing, it's definitely not that one. Obviously not that one. Probably that one. It is. Yunnan is out. Left Komandang is out. Hunan's about to fall. Qing is about to fall. However, each of these warlords are a major power, so they are going to have to take each of them out. Players are being absolutely bloodthirsty. I mean, the players always are. And we can actually see here, I totally forgot to check out the... Whoa, that's a lot of different front lines. Baratia's attack against... Sorry, Princely Federation's attack against Baratia. It looks like they are battle planning this, which means that they do actually have planning prep. Although Ali Hadar's units don't have any. So it might be microing them. Oh no, that's the naval invasion. That's why they don't have any. That's actually one of another annoyance, is the fact you don't get planning preparation while you're planning a naval invasion. Meanwhile, Romania and Greece have fallen. Bulgaria has made some real headway here. Completely missed that, I'm sorry. So now they're just left with Serbia and the Ottomans.